A century passed after the Blade River sect absorbed the territories of the Shi kingdom, and the sect had become a supreme power controlling 155 primal chaos prefectures across the land of origin. On this special day, Qingyan City was celebrating the grand marriage ceremony of Moyu Qingyan, the eldest disciple of the Blade River sect, and Yu Shui Tianxin, the princess of Yu Kingdom. The entire city was filled with excitement as countless cultivators discussed the newlyweds, their already born son Mo Yusho, and the fact that both Luo Feng and the monarch of Yu country would personally attend the ceremony. Among the disciples of the Blade River sect, 5 had already reached the primal chaos realm, although the second disciple, Xin Yu, possessed prestige comparable to Moyu Qingyan. He cared only about cultivation and had no interest in managing the sect. Knowing that his own path of cultivation had limited prospects, Moyu Qingyan devoted himself wholeheartedly to handling the affairs of the Blade River sect. Over the years, Morosa gradually entrusted him with more and more responsibilities, making him the actual chief steward of the entire sect. Luo Feng, whose power of the world could cover the entire territory and detect any corruption within the sect, was extremely satisfied with Moyu Qingyan's diligence and loyalty. During the celebration, Moyu Qingyan introduced his son, Mo Yusho, to Morosa. The child behaved politely and respectfully, causing Morosa to laugh with delight. Mo Yusho even innocently mentioned that his father often said his cultivation achievements were mainly due to the teachings of his second master. Pleased by the child, Morosa immediately offered to personally guide his cultivation in the future. Both Moyu Qingyan and Yu Shui Tianxin gladly accepted the offer. The two had come together while working closely on matters concerning the Blade River sect in Yu Kingdom, and both had reached the Chaos Realm through the bloodline cultivation path. Since they were occupied with countless responsibilities, they were more than happy to entrust their son to Morosa, whose current strength had already surpassed the primal Chaos Realm. Morosa even jokingly encouraged them to have more children, promising to teach all of them and hoping that one of their descendants would become an exceptional genius. At that moment, Luo Feng and Yu Shui country master suddenly appeared. Moyu Qingyan and Yu Shui Tianxin immediately greeted them with respect. After meeting the child, Luo Feng took out a precious gift from a jade box, a pale blue leaf emitting a refreshing fragrance. This treasure came from the deeper regions of the dream domain and was worth approximately 8 million merit points, making it extremely suitable for strengthening a child's cultivation foundation. Even Yu Shui country master was shocked by the value of the gift and remarked that it was far too precious. Since the destruction of his original true body in Tianhe, he had been forced to nurture a new body from scratch, and even all his treasures and weapon secret treasures combined were only worth around 1 billion merit points. He himself would never have spent 8 million merit points on nurturing a descendant. The incident demonstrated the enormous difference in wealth and treasure gathering ability between ordinary monarchs and someone like Luo Feng, whose true strength had already reached the emperor level and whose ability to obtain treasures far surpassed that of normal god kings and monarchs. Meanwhile, in Huyang City, Luo Feng's perfect divine body sat cross-legged within the star tower while his gigantic world life-form true body rested nearby. This true body possessed more than 100 times the energy of his perfect divine body, and maintaining its consciousness imposed a certain burden on his mind. Nevertheless, Luo Feng's primary focus remained comprehending the secret patterns of the Star Tower. To him, the Star Tower's greatest value was not as a weapon but as an endless book containing mysteries that surpassed any great Tao. He had spent centuries attempting to use the 9 branches of the great Tao of life and death to interpret the Star Tower's mysteries. However, even after all this time, he had only created 2 6-branch fusion techniques and 2 7-branch fusion techniques and still had not managed to create either an 8-branch or 9-branch fusion technique. Despite this, Luo Feng remained content, believing that with his long lifespan, he had ample time to continue slowly exploring the deepest truths of existence. Over these centuries, Luo Feng had entered the deep layers of the dream domain once every 100 years. During each exploration, he usually investigated around 10 deep spaces before one of his avatars was completely exhausted. Thus, every century he lost only 1 avatar, equivalent to roughly 30% of a perfect divine body's energy, while his world life form continued to grow stronger and larger. Throughout these expeditions, he had surveyed thousands of deep spaces and recorded numerous rare treasures. Among them, Only one treasure appeared to be worth more than 10 billion merit points. Treasures of such value were exceptionally rare because they were desired even by the ancestors of the two ancient countries and the three alien clans. This treasure was the Thousand Dreams fruit. A black fruit with a faint purple glow that grew quietly from a tree hidden within a cliff crevice. A mysterious gray-robed figure had waited there for a very long time. Believing that obtaining the fruit, combined with his previous accumulations, would allow him to exchange for a complete set of Ultimate Realm primordial bloodline. In his opinion, the official valuation of 15 billion merit points was absurdly low because treasures exceeding 10 billion merit points were treasures that even the strongest beings desperately needed and therefore possessed value far beyond any official price. Just as the Thousand Dreams fruit was about to ripen, another powerhouse arrived from the void. It was Luo Feng, whose invisible domain instantly covered the surrounding region and discovered the hidden gray-robed figure. The gray-robed figure refused to reveal his identity and openly declared that Luo Feng would not obtain the fruit. Shortly afterward, two more terrifying experts arrived. A black river condensed into the burly figure of Luo, one of the 13 emperors of the Flame-Wind ancient country and a cultivator of the great Tao of life origin. While a mysterious figure in purple robes also appeared. Luo admitted that he had also been waiting a long time for the Thousand Dreams fruit and was surprised to encounter two unfamiliar experts. The four powerhouses watched one another cautiously, each prepared to fight for the priceless treasure. Then another presence suddenly entered the deep space. A figure wearing a black robe and a golden mask arrived, and the appearance of this fifth powerhouse immediately caused all four experts to become even more vigilant. Knowing that the competition for the Thousand Dreams fruit had become far more dangerous and unpredictable, Luo Feng was greatly surprised when he discovered that four other powerful experts had gathered in the deep regions of the dream domain to wait for the maturation of the Thousand Dreams fruit. He had explored these dangerous regions for more than a century and had never encountered another competitor because only a handful of beings in the land of origin possessed the qualifications and strength to enter such places. Moreover, he only explored a few spaces every century, making encounters with others extremely unlikely. Nevertheless, he was not worried at all because he had made extensive preparations. Altogether, his avatars within the dream domain contained energy equivalent to 12 perfect divine bodies. While the avatar he had sent to compete for the Thousand Dreams fruit alone possessed 10 times the energy of a perfect divine body. In terms of pure physical strength, it was dozens of times stronger than the avatar that had fought the Dark Sky Venerable. And Luo Feng believed his body had already reached the level of an ultimate realm life form. The other four experts immediately noticed the black-robed figure wearing a golden mask. They quickly realized that he was the mysterious powerhouse who had once killed the Emperor of Tian Kun in a single move using a terrifying soul or spiritual will technique that prevented the Emperor from even reviving. The group consisted of Emperor Luo Feng and Emperor Wu of the Flame-Wind ancient country. A mysterious gray-robed figure. And a mysterious purple-robed woman. Emperor Luo Feng laughed and remarked that he had expected at most 2 or 3 competitors to appear for the treasure. Yet 5 supreme experts had gathered instead. Emperor Wu observed that there were now 3 mysterious independent cultivators present. An extremely rare occurrence, as emperors of the Flame-Wind ancient country. Both of them naturally looked down upon independent cultivators. The gray-robed figure mocked the 2 emperors, pointing out that in the dangerous dream domain they dared not carry any beyond God King grade secret treasures and therefore should not be so arrogant. Indeed, none of the 5 experts had brought extremely precious treasures because losing an avatar in the dream domain was acceptable. But losing priceless weapons would be disastrous. Emperor Wu then directly asked Luo Feng if he was the one who had killed the Emperor of Tian Kun, and Luo Feng calmly admitted it. When Emperor Wu tried to determine whether they had met before, Luo Feng merely smiled and said that if the 2 emperors were willing to give up the Thousand Dreams fruit, they could sit down and have a pleasant conversation. Recognizing the danger posed by Luo Feng's spiritual techniques, Emperor Luo Feng suggested that everyone should first join forces to eliminate the black-robed expert before competing among themselves. However, the gray-robed figure immediately rejected the proposal, arguing that the 3 independent cultivators should unite instead because otherwise all treasures would eventually fall into the hands of the Flame-Wind ancient country. The purple-robed woman agreed, and Luo Feng also nodded, forming a temporary alliance between the 3. As the Thousand Dreams fruit was about to ripen, Emperor Wu made the first move. His body instantly transformed into a vast black river that swept across the entire region and engulfed the battlefield. The black water possessed terrifying corrosive power and coiled around Luo Feng like giant pythons. Luo Feng carefully examined the attack and realized that Emperor Wu also cultivated the great Tao of life origin and was an ultimate realm life form. However, this avatar possessed only a fraction of the Emperor's true power. The binding force of the river was insignificant to Luo Feng, and even its corrosive power could not match the recovery speed of his enormous body. The purple-robed woman also stood calmly within the black river, completely ignoring its destructive power. The gray-robed figure appeared partially transparent, causing most of the corrosive force to dissipate before it could touch him. Emperor Wu then created 3 enormous palms from the river water and crushed down upon the 3 independent cultivators. But none of them took his attack seriously because Emperor Wu, who followed the pure path of life, was not particularly powerful in direct offense without secret treasures. All 3 independent cultivators instead focused their attention on Emperor Jufeng, who followed the path of space and was considered a much more dangerous opponent. The gray-robed figure secretly transmitted a message, and all 3 attacked simultaneously. At the same moment, Emperor Jufeng unleashed his own attack with all his strength directed solely at Luo Feng. The emperors considered Luo Feng's soul techniques to be the greatest threat and wanted to eliminate him first. A terrifying wind of space swept through the battlefield. This invisible wind penetrated every part of the space occupied by Luo Feng and attacked the smallest structures within his body, causing even the most fundamental components of matter to shatter. However, every unit of Luo Feng's body was formed from a perfect combination of 24 embryonic worlds. Although damaged, his body regenerated instantly with endless vitality. Emperor Jufeng was shocked because very few beings in the land of origin possessed physical bodies comparable to ultimate realm life forms. At that moment, Emperor Jufeng suddenly felt his soul being torn apart by repeated and terrifying attacks. Recognizing the familiar technique, he immediately realized that the gray-robed figure was none other than God King Zongfu, the master of Mother River and the leader of the greatest rebel force against the flame-wind ancient country. At the same time, invisible power from the purple-robed woman continuously eroded Emperor Jofengji's body and even consumed Emperor Wu's Black River water. The river rapidly shrank despite the enormous vitality contained within it. The 2 emperors instantly realized that the situation had become disastrous. They suspected that the purple-robed woman was an ultimate realm expert and perhaps even the ancestor of the East Extreme domain. Although she seemed to be deliberately concealing part of her strength, the woman mocked Emperor Wu, saying that he dared to appear with only 1/3 of the power of an ultimate realm life form. At this critical moment, Luo Feng finally attacked. 2 beams of golden light suddenly burst from his eyes and instantly pierced Emperor Jofengji's body. The attacks were called the Heavenly Light Silver Shuttle, a 6-branch fusion technique derived from the great Tao of life and death. Luo Feng had created this technique after experiencing the attacks of 6 silver shuttles within the dark area of the dream domain and studying them while meditating in the Star Tower. The golden beams moved with incredible speed, repeatedly piercing through Emperor Jufeng and accelerating the collapse of his body. Despite suffering attacks from all 3 opponents, Emperor Jufeng still retained about 70% of his energy because his avatar possessed a complete body and soul. Emperor Wu, however, had already lost more than half of his Black River water. Understanding that they could not win, Emperor Jufeng immediately chose to retreat. Using his profound mastery of space, he escaped instantly and carried Emperor Wu away with him. Neither Luo Feng nor the others could stop him. After the 2 emperors fled, only 3 experts remained around the Thousand Dreams fruit: Luo Feng, God King Zongfu, and the mysterious purple-robed woman. Luo Feng understood just how terrifying God King Zongfu was. In the distant past, with only a single super-secret treasure, Zongfu had been able to fight against the strongest emperor of the flame-wind ancient country. He had killed more than 10 god kings of the imperial clan and had become such a threat that even primogenitor Yan Feng personally intervened, destroying all of his avatars and resurrection methods. Yet despite everything, God King Zongfu had somehow survived because of his profound mastery of the great Tao of life and causality. Even so, Luo Feng felt that the purple-robed woman might be even more dangerous than God King Zongfu. Smiling at her 2 remaining opponents, The purple-robed woman declared that only the three of them were left and that they would now have to determine which of them was truly the strongest and who would ultimately claim the Thousand Dreams fruit. God King Xuanfu felt deeply uneasy after realizing that his identity had been exposed, while he remained unable to determine the identities of either the purple-robed woman or Luo Feng. The fact that his enemies were hidden while he was completely exposed put him at a disadvantage. Nevertheless, he still believed that no one in the land of origin could truly kill him and was determined to obtain the Thousand Dreams fruit at any cost. He needed it because he intended to exchange it for a piece of Ultimate Realm primordial bloodline, which would allow him to cultivate an Ultimate Realm lifeform as a backup plan against the future ultimate destruction of the Source World. The purple-robed woman was equally confident. She believed that her life form and cultivation realm surpassed those of the other two, so losing to them would be impossible. Luo Feng also became cautious, realizing that both opponents remained extremely powerful even without carrying any secret treasures. Unlike many emperors and monarchs who relied heavily on such treasures to reach their peak combat power. The battle began when God King Xuanfu suddenly launched an invisible attack. He used the profound concept of life stripping, a technique derived from the great Tao of life origin that targeted both the body and soul by directly removing life force. Luo Feng immediately felt an attack upon his soul and life essence. But his 24 forms and his incomparably vast world life form remained completely stable, making the attack ineffective. The purple-robed woman was similarly unaffected. Shocked, God King Xuanfu wondered if both of them were Ultimate Realm beings because his powerful technique had failed to shake either of them. The purple-robed woman then laughed and urged Luo Feng to make his move. Luo Feng confidently replied that she might not be able to withstand his attack, but she encouraged him to try. At that moment, Luo Feng unleashed his spiritual will completely. To both opponents, the world seemed to disappear, leaving only Luo Feng's calm eyes, which transformed into an enormous, slowly rotating star carrying terrifying pressure. This was the will star technique from the Lai Yuan technique. The spiritual attack struck instantly. It first rolled over God King Xuanfu's spiritual will and shattered it into fragments. Luo Feng intentionally held back and did not completely annihilate him because he had no intention of killing his opponents during a treasure competition. The will star then struck the purple-robed woman. To Luo Feng's surprise, he encountered tremendous resistance. Although her spiritual will suffered numerous cracks, it did not collapse. He quickly concluded that her spiritual will had not reached the beyond God King level. Yet her body somehow possessed extraordinary defensive abilities that greatly weakened his spiritual attacks. This made Luo Feng suspect that she might be an Ultimate Realm life form or possess some similarly extraordinary secret. God King Xuanfu, whose spiritual will had been shattered, immediately remembered the terrifying pressure he had once experienced from Emperor Qing and primogenitor Yan Feng. He realized that the black-robed powerhouse before him had shown mercy, since he could have completely destroyed this avatar. Acknowledging the overwhelming difference in strength, God King Xuanfu admitted defeat and escaped using the causality escape technique. After Xuanfu's departure, Luo Feng continued attacking the purple-robed woman with other variations of the Lai Yuan technique, including a will blade light, but she resisted every attack. She even endured both his spiritual assaults and the suppressive influence of the deep dream realm. She praised Luo Feng, stating that although she had not brought any super-secret treasures and her avatar could only use around 70% of her heart force for defense, he was still exceptionally powerful. She further observed that there were very few beyond God King level wills in the land of origin and concluded that Luo Feng was neither Emperor Cheng, Emperor Meng, nor the Lord of 10,000 Realms, meaning that an entirely new supreme expert had emerged. Luo Feng admitted that he had underestimated her. He found it incredible that someone with only God King Ultimate Realm spiritual will could still resist him so effectively. The purple-robed woman responded that the battle was not over and that even with only 30% of her heart force available for offense, she could still use Ultimate Realm techniques. She then launched her own invisible attack. Luo Feng's body immediately suffered assaults on every level, material, energy, and rules all attempted to destroy his body and injure his soul. However, Luo Feng's body functioned like an enormous world. Any damage was instantly healed by his vast reserves of life force, while his powerful soul and the operation of the Lai Yuan technique effortlessly neutralized all soul-level attacks. The purple-robed woman became increasingly shocked. She realized that Luo Feng's body was not an ultimate realm life form and did not possess the perfection of a complete great Tao. Yet the sheer size of his body and the immense amount of energy he contained allowed him to instantly recover from any damage. Finally, Luo Feng decided to launch his strongest attack. He gently extended a finger and released a single drop of blood. Although it appeared insignificant, this drop contained 1/10 of the energy reserves of his powerful avatar. It was the 7-branch fusion technique known as blood dripping, which incorporated Luo Feng's understanding of the mysterious blood-colored scales deep within the Star Tower. The more energy invested into this technique, the more terrifying its power became. As soon as the drop of blood touched the purple-robed woman's finger, it instantly spread throughout her body. It rapidly corroded every life structure it encountered and absorbed her power, converting it into its own energy. The purple-robed woman was horrified because this ability resembled the enlightenment power of the Lord of 10,000 Realms, which could transform the power of others into its own. She realized that her avatar, limited to maintaining only 30% of her heart force, could not withstand the erosion of this attack and that she would have to rely on her true body to resist it. Knowing that she had already lost this confrontation, the purple-robed woman praised Luo Feng once again before decisively abandoning the battle and leaving the dream realm space. Once she escaped, the drop of blood automatically separated from her because it still contained a large portion of Luo Feng's own energy reserves. Watching her depart, Luo Feng could not help but feel astonished. Even after using both the Lai Yuan technique and the 7-branch fusion technique blood dripping with his full power, he had only managed to force back one of her avatars. This made him even more curious and cautious, as he wondered who this mysterious purple-robed woman truly was and what kind of terrifying existence stood behind that single avatar. Luo Feng stood alone before the *1000 Dreams fruit, the only remaining contender after the other 4 powerful experts had left. Knowing that the final moment was the most dangerous, he spread his spiritual will across a vast area to prevent anyone from stealing the treasure. While waiting, he reflected on the previous battle. Among the 5 competitors, Di Wu's avatar had been the weakest, while Di Jufeng and God King Zongfu were evenly matched. The mysterious purple-robed woman was the strongest, and Luo Feng believed that without the Lai Yuan technique, he might not have been able to defeat her. He also realized that her true body, combined with powerful treasures, would be even more terrifying. The battle also helped him evaluate his own techniques. His Heavenly Light Silver Shuttle, a 6-branch fusion technique, was already comparable to ordinary Ultimate Realm techniques, while Blood Dripping, his 7-branch fusion technique, surpassed them. He further understood the immense potential of the Great Tao of Life and Death, believing that if he could eventually fuse all 9 branches, its power would far exceed that of any single Great Tao. After waiting for 3 days, the 1000 Dreams fruit finally began to mature, emitting a dazzling purple light and fragrant aroma. At that moment, a giant turtle-like native creature emerged from a nearby pond and rushed toward the fruit. Luo Feng had already investigated the area and knew this creature was within his ability to handle. He unleashed his endless river domain and used blood dripping, infecting the creature with corrosive blood that greatly weakened it and trapped it within the river. However, the fruit's fragrance soon attracted an even greater threat, a seemingly endless swarm of red scale creatures. Luo Feng recognized them as a collective life form that shared a single consciousness. Knowing he could not destroy them entirely, he focused on delaying them until the fruit fully ripened. He manipulated his river domain to force the red scale swarm into conflict with the turtle-like creature. The swarm quickly devoured the giant creature completely, buying Luo Feng a short amount of time. He then used blood dripping against the red scale creatures, but although it destroyed some of them, the technique consumed too much energy and barely reduced their overall numbers. Realizing this approach was inefficient, Luo Feng used another 7-branch fusion technique called Cage. Forming a giant hand, he imprisoned the entire red scale species within his palm world, creating multiple layers of spatial seals. Even so, the creatures were powerful enough to consume space itself and gnaw at the world's membrane, forcing Luo Feng to continuously expend energy to maintain the prison. He regretted not bringing the Star Tower, which could have suppressed the swarm much more easily, but he refused to risk losing such a precious treasure. At last, the 1000 Dreams fruit's light and fragrance completely disappeared. signaling that it had fully matured. Luo Feng immediately swept it into a prepared treasure box and secured it. With the treasure obtained, he released the trapped red scale creatures and instantly escaped using his black light escape technique. He crossed from the Dream Realm's outer region, forcibly passed through the ceiling formation of the two ancient countries, and returned directly to Huyang City. This escape technique, another six-branch fusion technique, moved at the speed of thought and possessed the power of an ultimate realm escape skill. Outside the Dream Realm's exit, the purple-robed woman had been waiting. She briefly saw the black-robed, golden-masked Luo Feng emerge and instantly disappear again. She noticed that his escape technique carried traces of the path of destruction and became increasingly curious about his true identity. The purple-robed woman then returned to Tianmu Kingdom, one of the greatest powers in the land of origin. There, she merged back into the body of a handsome young man, revealing that she had merely been his avatar. The young man sighed in disappointment that he had failed to obtain a share of the Thousand Dreams fruit for his elder brother and lamented the difficulty of cultivating as a sector beast. Finding the mysterious secret pattern book before him almost impossible to comprehend. The handsome young man, a sector beast named Yu, stared at the secret pattern book with frustration. Behind him, a gigantic dark red phantom condensed, its enormous mouth appearing capable of devouring everything. He lamented that he had already cultivated 7 destruction path bodies, comprehended 129 ultimate realm secret techniques, and even mastered numerous spiritual will secret arts. By combining these techniques, he could unleash even greater power. Yet, despite all his efforts, every aspect of his cultivation, his body, secret techniques, and spiritual will, had reached the ultimate realm and could advance no further. Enraged and despairing, he shouted that he would cultivate no more and threw aside the secret pattern book. A precious inheritance left by Yuan that the Tianmu kingdom possessed only in 2 copies. After leaving the hall, Yu sat alone atop a majestic mountain, drinking fine wine and eating delicacies that had been preserved in time-stopped treasure storage. At this moment, the Purple Wood Godly King arrived. Yu admitted that his avatar in the dream domain had failed to seize the Thousand Dreams fruit. The Purple Wood Godly King reminded him that he no longer lacked cultivation resources. Since Yu had spent endless years gathering treasures for him and had even helped him obtain a portion of the ultimate primordial bloodline, allowing him to become an ultimate realm life form. However, he urged Yu to think about his own future instead of focusing solely on others. The Purple Wood Godly King explained that the land of origin was approaching the end of its lifespan and would likely be destroyed within tens of billions of years. Since sector beasts were born from the great Tao of destruction, they were destined to perish when the source world ended. Only by breaking through the limits of the ultimate realm and reaching a level beyond the God King could a sector beast free itself from this fate. Sector beasts possessed many extraordinary abilities by nature. They could effortlessly reach the ultimate realm, had perfect life forms, could create clones, and could even breed entire armies. However, they also suffered severe restrictions imposed by the supreme rules. Their minds were naturally inclined toward destruction and the end of the world. And only through soul enslavement could those instincts be suppressed. More importantly, all sector beasts were doomed to disappear during the Great Destruction and could never survive into the next era of the Source World. The Purple Wood Godly King then reminded Yu that he himself could eventually leave the land of origin through the transmission channel left by Yuan. But Yu would face inevitable death when the world ended. He asked whether Yu had truly accepted such a fate. Looking at his older brother, Yu became emotional. Since his birth, the first person he had seen was the Purple Wood Godly King. The Godly King had raised him, taught him, protected him, and guided his growth. Although they called each other brothers, the relationship between them was closer to that of a father and son. Yu finally confessed his pain. He said that cultivation was torture because, as a sector beast, profound mysteries had once naturally appeared in his mind, allowing him to effortlessly reach the ultimate realm. However, now that he had reached the limit, he was forced to rely on his own understanding to advance further. Something he found nearly impossible. Although he had created some new techniques, they were merely applications of the destruction path and not true innovations. In his eyes, the great Tao of destruction was already perfect and flawless, making it impossible for him to absorb new knowledge or modify his understanding in even the slightest way. Because of this, he believed he could never break through and wished to stop cultivating entirely, preferring to spend his remaining billions of years living freely and happily. The Purple Wood Godly King sighed but did not give up. He proposed a compromise. Yu would spend one era cultivating and the next enjoying life, devoting only half of his time to cultivation. Although pained by the idea, Yu eventually agreed because he did not wish to disappoint his older brother. The two then began drinking together. During their conversation, the Purple Wood Godly King made a shocking declaration. If Yu truly could not escape the fate of a sector beast, then he would remain with him until the final day of the Source World and face destruction together. Hearing this, Yu immediately objected, insisting that his brother must leave the land of origin before its end. Otherwise he too would perish. However, the Purple Wood Godly King calmly replied that Yu was his only remaining close family member. If Yu died, then cultivation and struggle would become meaningless to him, and there would be no reason to continue living alone. These words deeply affected Yu. He suddenly realized how important he was to his brother. The Purple Wood Godly King had long since lost interest in the land of origin and rarely even left the Tianmu kingdom. Most of his affairs were handled by a sector beast avatar made in his own image. If Yu died, his brother might truly lose all desire to live and cultivate. For the first time, Yu felt a powerful urgency to become stronger, not only to save himself but also for the sake of the Purple Wood Godly King. As he watched Yu's reaction, the Purple Wood Godly King remained silent. Although he genuinely cared for Yu after countless years together, the people he cherished most were still his family and children from long ago. He had another reason for pushing Yu so hard. Long ago, he had once met Yuan and asked whether there was a way to revive his deceased family members. Yuan told him that only by breaking free from the braided cage and becoming the master of the Source World, the land of origin, could one rescue the dead from the river of time and space. Since that day, the Purple Wood Godly King had devoted himself completely to cultivation and had also encouraged his protector, the sector beast Yu, to grow stronger and gather countless treasures. Elsewhere, in a hidden and vast space within the flame-wind ancient country, Emperor Cheng, Di Jufeng, and Di Fu gathered to discuss the battle over the Thousand Dreams fruit. Di Jufeng explained that after his defeat, he had secretly guarded the entrance to the dream domain. On the day of his failure, God King Zongfu escaped using a causality escape technique, while the purple-robed woman escaped in an even more mysterious manner that almost exceeded his ability to detect. The black-robed, golden-faced expert had directly broken through the formations of the two ancient countries and escaped with incredible speed, giving Di Jufeng no opportunity to intercept him. Di Wu then asked Di Fu whether he could identify these mysterious experts through his powerful destiny divining abilities. However, Di Fu admitted that even he could not determine their identities with certainty. He suggested that the purple-robed woman might be the Wind City Empress, who had been personally nurtured by the East Extreme Domain ancestor and possessed resources comparable to those of the royal godly kings. She could also be the Lord of 10,000 Realms or perhaps an avatar of a sector beast. As for the black-robed, golden-faced expert, Di Jufeng explained that his annihilation wind had been unable to shake the man's physical body at all, proving that his body was at least comparable to that of an ultimate realm life form. Furthermore, his soul or spiritual will techniques had instantly killed the Emperor of Tian Kun. Such terrifying strength in both body and soul was exceedingly rare in the land of origin. Di Fu was equally puzzled because none of his known suspects matched the mysterious expert's characteristics. He eventually speculated that this person might be a newly emerged powerhouse who had quietly reached the ultimate realm. Regardless of his exact cultivation, Di Fu insisted that they must treat him as an ultimate realm expert. After Di Jufeng and Di Wu departed, Di Fu remained alone and revealed his true thoughts. Based on the extraordinary physical body displayed by the mysterious expert, he believed there was an 80 to 90% chance that the man was actually Luo He, or Luo Feng. This possibility pleased him greatly. In his opinion, Emperor Qing looked down on him. The Lord of 10,000 Realms was too cunning and deceitful, and Emperor Ming was too dangerous to trust. By contrast, Luo Feng had always displayed loyalty and integrity, making him the ideal companion with whom to leave the land of origin and face life and death together. Since Di Fu had long planned to venture beyond the Source World, he decided to station an avatar near the transmission channel and depart immediately once Luo Feng left. ensuring that they could travel to the same destination. Meanwhile, in Huyang City, Luo Feng sat in the city lord's mansion contemplating how to use the Thousand Dreams fruit. He eventually decided to trade it with the two ancient countries in exchange for parts of the corpses of Ultimate Realm primordial bloodline creatures born within the land of origin. Although the three alien clans might also possess similar treasures, they would most likely come from other source worlds, making them unsuitable for his formless and intangible transformation technique. Since his world life form had already reached 24 forms, Luo Feng was already preparing for his future advancement into the Ultimate Realm. He ultimately decided that most of the corpse materials he obtained would be consumed by Morosa, while only a small portion would be kept for his own cultivation.